Hey guys, tonight we're wandering into the ancient Persian desert, not to sweat, but to chill. You're standing barefoot on hot clay tiles, somewhere around 500 BS, squinting up at a sun, so bright it feels personal. The wind is dry. The air is motionless, and if you're hoping for shade, you'll need to invent it yourself. The garden in front of you looks like a mirage, geometric flower beds, rows of cypress trees, and a trickle of water running through dusty stone channels. This isn't just a place to sit and sip pomegranate juice. It's an early experiment in climate control, and you're about to see how a few humble tools, mud, wind, and gravity, can cool an entire building long before the word air conditioning was even a dream. You probably won't survive this heat in your socks and sandals combo. Persians didn't have ceiling fans or box units, but they had patience, mathematics, and a deep respect for airflow. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing who else is listening around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step through a low wooden doorway into a courtyard home made of thick earthen bricks. The walls are a sandy gold, still warm from the sun but cool inside, thanks to something that looks suspiciously like a giant chimney sticking out the roof. It's not smoke that comes through it, it's a whisper of wind pulled down into the heart of the house. That structure, called a badger or windcatcher, is one of the world's earliest passive cooling devices. It's the reason you're not currently melting like a honey pastry left in the sun. Here's the idea. High above, the dry desert wind gets caught by the tall tower and funneled down into the living space. The air, cooled as it brushes past wet clay walls or trickles over a small pool, spreads through the house. No fans, no switches, just gravity and good design. Historians still argue whether the original windcatchers were inspired by observation of termite mounds or if it's just a poetic coincidence. Either way, you can't help but admire the stubbornness it takes to engineer a breeze out of thin air. Meanwhile, you walk further inside and brush your fingers along the wall. The bricks are cool, not because of magic, but because of mud, sun. Dried and layered with a kind of lime plaster that helps trap the chill overnight. In some homes, builders even line the walls with reed mats soaked in water, which let the hot air brush across them and lose its sting. Out back in the smallest, most sacred part of the home, there's a garden. Not a showpiece, but a jardar bag, a four-part layout that represents paradise in Persian design. It's more than symbolic. Each quadrant offers not just beauty, but practical cooling. The garden absorbs heat. The plants transpire moisture, and the canals, fed by an underground source, reflect light and breeze. If you're lucky, you might catch a glimpse of water moving uphill. No, you're not hallucinating. There's a bit of clever elevation trickery going on. And where does that water come from? Beneath your feet, there's an invisible miracle called a qanat, an ancient underground tunnel that gently guides mountain water across miles of dry terrain, using nothing more than gravity and a lot of digging. These tunnels, often 30 to 50 feet underground, keep the water cool and clean. Some historians believe the earliest qanats date back over 2,500 years, possibly even earlier. You might not see them, but you'll feel their work in every corner of this house. As you tiptoe back toward the front of the home, past the sleeping quarters with their heavy curtains and padded benches, you realize something funny. All this effort digging qanats, designing windcatchers, painting mud walls, wasn't about comfort the way we think of it now. It was about balance, surviving heat without inviting waste, cooling homes without exhausting nature. And then there's the fringe theory that some of these homes even used ancient knowledge of thermal siphoning to create pressure differentials, making airflow in exactly the right direction. Sounds a little ambitious, sure, but hey, these were the people who gave us algebra. Let them have their theories. Even now, your body's adjusting to the cool. Your breath slows. The thick clay walls keep the world outside muffled. The flicker of a candle in a clay sconce makes the shadows dance gently on the wall. And just as you start to settle, a breeze rolls through from above, guided by a structure older than most nations, bringing a breath of mountain air into a mud, brick bedroom. Not bad for something built out of dirt. And just as you start to settle, a breeze rolls through from above, guided by a structure older than most nations, bringing a breath of mountain air into a mud, brick bedroom. Not bad for something built out of dirt. You wake from a nap that may or may not have happened, eyes half closed, still inside that gently cooled Persian house. The sun outside is blazing, but in here the air is tolerable, maybe even cozy. There's a soft drip of water somewhere nearby, the rustle of fig leaves just outside the lattice window, and the unmistakable hush of architectural confidence, the real hero here. A deeply unglamorous engineering combo, qanats and windcatchers. You know about the badgirs by now, those tall towers grabbing at any breeze like a cat after a laser pointer. But you haven't seen how beautifully they team up with the hidden flowing qanat below. Let's follow the air. Picture this. A shaft carved deep into the earth brings mountain spring water down across miles, snaking its way through the desert in total darkness. That cool water lies undisturbed beneath the house, maybe inside a small underground chamber called a sardab, or cold room. Now imagine the badger pulling in hot outside air, which passes down the tower, glides across the subterranean water, and comes out the other side feeling like it just took a cold shower. Congratulations, you just invented evaporative cooling centuries before anyone in Chicago sold window units out of a Sears catalog. The sardab isn't just a technical marvel, it's the home's soul. In summer, families retreat there during the hottest hours, lounging on woven mats, sipping rosewater drinks, probably griping about their goats. The walls are thick, the light is soft, and every sound is a whisper. This isn't just about survival, this is about reclaiming calm from chaos now outside. Persian engineers were no slouches either. In some large estates, multiple badgers were carefully angled to catch the most likely summer winds, each designed with a different number of internal flues and louvers to handle changing conditions. Some towers were split into compartments, so if one side caught a hotter gust, it could be closed off. That's right, you're looking at the ancient version of a smart home. Eat your heart out. Nest thermostat. Historians still debate whether these systems ever truly cooled entire mansions to fridge light levels, or if that's just later romanticism. But walk into one of these spaces today, and the temperature drop is undeniable, and no fossil fuels. Just mud, water, air, and an extremely stubborn desire not to sweat through your robes. Let's walk again, this time through a bazaar in Neyazid, one of Iran's oldest cities and a living museum of wind architecture. You dodge sleepy donkeys and fruit carts to enter a cool, covered alley. Overhead, you spot a network of windcatchers rising above the rooftops like stone periscopes. These aren't just for homes, they cool mosques, storage rooms, public baths, even ice houses, where slabs of winter ice are kept frozen deep into summer. Ah, yes, the Dakya giant. Cone-shaped mud structure that looks like a beehive built by giants. Inside, the walls are coated with a special mixture of sand, clay, lime, and egg whites. Yep, egg whites. Apparently they make the plaster more resilient to moisture and cracking. The ice inside is protected not by magic, but by physics. The thick insulation and shady design, coupled with underground access to cool air and water, allow these desert refrigerators to do the impossible. Store ice in a place where the sun routinely tries to set the ground on fire. And there's more. Some accounts suggest people even use these badgers and qanat-fed basins to create an early version of natural air washing, that is, using airflow to trap dust and purify the air before it entered living spaces. It's unclear whether this was a deliberate health measure or just a pleasant accident, but hey, even happy accidents deserve a little applause. Now peek into a small side chamber near the garden, where someone's hanging damp cotton sheets in front of the window. It's an old trick. As the air moves past the fabric, it cools, picks up a bit of moisture, and makes breathing feel bearable again. It also smells like sun, dried laundry, and rose petals. You might never leave. Evenings bring another sensory delight, the perfumed breeze. Households sometimes poured rose water or citrus essence into the shallow pools beneath the badgirs, so that the circulating air picked up subtle scents. You're not just breathing cooler air, you're being pampered by it. And yet, for all this ingenuity, most of it never became mainstream outside the region. Western travelers in the 18th and 19th centuries often admired the effect, scribbling notes about miraculous towers that summon wind. But by then, industrialization had different ideas. Still, walk through one of these old homes now, and you'll notice how everything, floor tiles, fountain placement, even where the pomegranates grow, is carefully, almost meditatively, designed to resist the sun. Not fight it, not block it, just outwit it. As night falls over the desert, you lie down in the sardab again, the faint sound of dripping water echoing through the floor. No hum of machinery, no flicker of LED screens. Just ancient engineering and the silence of 1,000 years of trial and error working in your favor. Somewhere above you, a gust of night wind enters a badger. It glides downward like a sigh, dips through a cool corridor, and finds its way to you, wrapped in centuries of sand, stone, and brilliance. You wake, or maybe you never really fell asleep, in the quietest hour of the Persian night. Outside, the stars are sharp and endless, flickering over adobe rooftops. But down here, in this cooled sanctuary of mud and wind, time moves like syrup. You're reclining on a narrow cushion inside the royal hashed behesht, or 8 Paradise's palace garden, surrounded by tiled alcoves, gurgling fountains, and the kind of still air that only ancient design can afford. This isn't a commoner's house now. It's the inner chamber of a Safavid-era state, and everything about it is meant to impress without raising your body temperature. Walls are inlaid with mirrored mosaics, ceiling beams carry faint, geometric carvings, but the real extravagance, a sleep-ready thermal equilibrium, achieved without a single copper wire. The breeze that just brushed your cheek didn't sneak in by accident. It came through a double-stack badger, specially constructed for taller structures, catching winds high above the city where air flows freely. Some of these towers soar 30 feet or more, with chambers inside that split and redirect airflow across entire floors. This particular home also has a hidden garden well, drawing cool air upward in a subtle vertical loop. The effect is like lying under a giant exhale. You shift slightly, and the faint creak of a wooden screen reminds you you're not alone in this history. Thousands once lived in these homes, built marriages inside them, raised noisy children, aged slowly with their backs against sun-warmed plaster walls. These rooms cooled generations, even as empires rose and fell. But this is where things get murky. Historians still argue whether these cooling systems were as effective year-round as the stories suggest. Some claim they only worked in specific seasons, or only if the architecture was paired just right with the landscape. Others argue that regional wind patterns had to be perfect, or the system fell apart into nothing but hot silence. There's even fringe debate over whether some badgirs were later ritualized, kept as status symbols long after their true function faded. What we do know is this: the best systems weren't just cooling rooms, they were shaping lives. A palace's sleeping chamber was often located based on airflow, not aesthetics. Children napped in the darkest rooms, elders sat nearest the shaded water basins, and even pets instinctively sprawled under wind channels. The rhythm of the home shifted according to heat and breeze. You stroll now into a tiled pavilion where a shallow marble trough runs along the floor, fed by that same hidden qanat system. During the hottest days, some households reportedly floated thin copper bowls of ice on these pools, chilling the air further. There's even one account, probably exaggerated, of an aristocrat who had snow delivered from a distant mountain just to cool his melon slices. That's dedication, or madness. Hard to say. Outside, the garden hums gently. A fig tree leans into the night breeze. You hear a clay jug creak on a rope pulley as someone, maybe just your imagination, lowers it into a dark cistern. It's a sound that hasn't changed in 1,000 years. And the materials, oh, the mud, still doing its quiet work. This isn't your backyard slop. This is kesht, sun. Dried bricks made from precise ratios of clay, straw, and water molded into shape and left to bake under a merciless sun. Over time, these bricks insulate the house like natural thermoses. Some were even sealed with lime-based stucco mixed with ashes or goat hair for added resilience. Modern engineers still marvel at the stuff, eco-friendly, fire-resistant, biodegradable. It's basically the Swiss Army knife of historical construction. You pass under a narrow arch into a secondary sleeping nook. The walls curve inwards slightly, an acoustic trick designed to soften echoes and enhance intimacy. Here, the wind reaches only as a suggestion, having already done its work. The floor is covered in woven mats, and someone has tucked a sprig of fresh mint under your cushion, maybe for the scent, maybe for luck. It's worth noting that as Persia's influence spread, these architectural cooling ideas traveled too. You'll find variations of windcatchers in Egypt, Pakistan, even parts of Spain, but none hold onto the spiritual reverence quite like the original. In Zoroastrian philosophy, air isn't just a convenience, it's one of the sacred elements, a force to be honored, channeled, and never wasted. And now you're ready to rest again. Your body feels lighter, your breaths deeper, the mud walls radiate a slow, satisfying coolness. Somewhere nearby, a candle gutters out in a puff of wax and rose oil. You're lying at the center of an ancient equation: mud plus wind plus water equals peace. And long after you leave this place, the bad gear will keep turning breezes into lullabies, one soft gust at a time.